What if Tank Davis, who can punch, who is a hell of a fighter, who is a top 10 pound for pound fighter, what if he lands a punch on this bigger guy's chin, right, who's not a professional fighter? What happens?
But if they do it for real, Tank is highly capable of taking Jake Paul out. So the exhibitions that I like to see are ones that either I can mythically look at and say, wow, well, if he would have did that back when he was 10 years younger or 8 years or 12 years ago, he would have beat him. You understand me? Because we know boxing.
But if he hits you because he's so accurate, he's going to drop you or could put you to sleep. But like not necessarily power punch. Like Edwin De Los Santos is a hard hitter. He would even have a hard time with rollies. I'm not even kidding.
Boxing experts are breaking down why they believe Gervonta "Tank" Davis will stop Jake Paul within just 3 rounds. Analyst Gareth A. Davis points out that during the press conference and face-off, Tank barely reacted to Jake's constant teasing about his height and stayed unusually quiet. He says that while Davis might have seemed a bit hesitant or unsure about taking the fight, once the bell rings, he expects Tank to unleash a furious burst of punches that will quickly put Jake Paul in his place.
Went about the presser.
He reminded me of a northern football fan being dragged to a shopping centre on a Saturday afternoon rather than being allowed to go to his favourite Liverpool seat. You'll relate to that, won't you? It was almost like he'd been shackled and dragged there against his will. Even when they faced off, it was as if Jake Paul had a bad smell about him or something. He didn't want to get near Jake Paul. He didn't want to. Just going to plug this in as well. I just realised it's not plugged in. It's almost as if he didn't want to indulge anyone at all. Like he'd signed up against his will, and then like he'd been signed up against his will. The agents and his manager and his handler had dragged him there without briefing him on what was going on and where it would be and what time it would take place. And there was this oaf in his mind standing there in front of him, this big oaf who kept posturing, and it just didn't do anything to him. I wondered at one point whether he was going to burst out with a combination of punches or something and just drop Jake Paul, who was being, measuring him up and going down to his height, and it was all very peculiar in my view. Like he really wasn't taking it seriously.
Ryan Garcia didn't hide his anger over the upcoming Jake Paul versus Gervonta Davis fight, calling it a complete insult to boxing. He says the huge difference in size and weight makes the matchup totally unfair and turns it into a show rather than a real competition. According to Ryan, boxing should be about skill, legacy, and respect, not social media hype or easy paydays. Seeing a smaller fighter like Gervonta take on someone naturally much bigger, he says, feels wrong, especially when it's being sold as a serious contest. Ryan warns that this kind of event sends the wrong message to young fighters, teaching them that money and attention matter more than discipline and honor. For him, it's not about entertainment, it's about protecting the true spirit of boxing. He sees this fight as disrespectful to the sport he's dedicated his life to.
Mainly Jake's end, we're not falling for the Disney Channel bit no more. We're not falling for you're not a fighter no more. We're not falling for that. You're ranked as a cruiserweight and you're out here trying to fight a lightweight. And then on top of it, you were just talking about fighting Anthony Joshua. That doesn't make no sense. And, I just felt like it was a disgrace to boxing and kind of it was not a good move by Jake Paul. I understand people saying, Gervonta got to go get his money, blah, blah, blah. But, we're not talking about that shit. We're talking about the sport, bro. We're not talking about, he got to get that money, bro. Yeah, but everybody's open to criticism. That's the whole point of this media shit. That's why they talk about basketball players. They don't talk about, LeBron's making too much. Nobody cares, bro. If LeBron's missing the shot, he's missing the fucking shot. So at the end of the day, bro, I just thought it was a disgrace to the sport. Because on one end, you got the casuals, right? The casuals don't see the weight difference. They see Jake Paul and Gervonta Davis. Yeah. And if Gervonta Davis doesn't fuck up Jake Paul, they're going to think Jake Paul is some pound-for-pound champion type of fighter. Yeah. And to me, that's just it's tricking the public, and it's kind of bullshit, bro, at the end of the day. Because at the end of the day, if Gervonta was Jake Paul's size, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. There probably wouldn't even be a fight.
Yeah,
you know
for
what I
sure.
mean? So I just think that it's a disgrace to boxing.
Well, we got to play devil's advocate because people were saying, well, Ryan, you called out Jake Paul before too, so how would you say that? What do you have to say to the people that were saying that?
Well, I'm way bigger than Gervonta Davis. Gervonta Davis is 5'4", and his last fight was at 133. My last fight was 147. I walk around 170. So, I mean, 170 to 190, whatever, you know, however big is not too much difference. But you got Gervonta Davis, he's actually really small. Like, when I fought him, like, he's small.
Yeah.
So I just think it's a very unfair fight. Nobody was complaining when Jake Paul was fighting Julio Cesar Chavez.
Right.
Nobody was complaining when he's fighting Anthony Joshua. And I still think Jake Paul's a cool dude. But shit, he's calling me out on my shit. I'm gonna call him out on his shit, bro. That's a fucking disgrace of a fight.
Yeah.
You know it. Just like Mike Tyson, low key was a disgrace, but we accepted it. But
Yeah.
he was 60 years old. I mean,
Right.
what the f we talking
He's
about
60.
here?
That's crazy.
Sean Porter views the Jake Paul versus Gervonta Davis fight through the eyes of a veteran who's seen the sport evolve, and not always for the better. He believes today's fighters are more focused on fast paydays than on building lasting legacies. In his eyes, Gervonta Davis has now joined the group of boxers chasing money instead of meaningful challenges. Porter reminds fans that the legends of the past risked everything for glory, fighting the toughest opponents to earn their place in history. Now, he says, too many fighters care more about sponsorships, social media fame, and short-term profits. For Porter, Tank's decision to face Jake Paul instead of pursuing true championship-level fights shows how much boxing's values have shifted. He admits that Gervonta is one of the most gifted fighters in the world, but believes he's wasting that talent on spectacle fights instead of career-defining moments. Porter's criticism isn't just aimed at Tank, though. It's at the growing trend of money-first matchups that, in his words, are slowly draining the soul out of boxing.
But why are you doing that? How do you sort of see this scenario now for him?
Yeah, I don't really know how to feel about it, what to really say about it. I've only been asked this when it's been presented to me. That's when I think about it, and I can't really come up with a good answer for it. In a lot of ways, it doesn't make sense to me. Of course, we know the size differential, and the list goes on from there. I don't know, man. I think we're entering a generation now, or a phase now where fighters, I don't know if it's fighters, I don't know if he doesn't care about the legacy, or if he feels like this fight doesn't matter, I'll get back to the legacy. I just don't know. This is truly it's not a legacy fight, but of course it is a generational money fight, so